All right, here is the quick and dirty version of the Rostow model, which I know has been giving some people some trouble. Imagine that there is a poor country. Have our poor country just be this little island over here. And that poor country, they don't have a lot, right? They don't have education. This guy over here is like 1 plus 1. I don't know what that is because I'm not very educated. They also have a lot of, poor health. Over here, this person's family is all dying because they're not very healthy. And really, there's not much for these people to do except for farm. And the farming that they do, they eat themselves. All right, but life kind of stinks, right? They're not educated, they're not healthy, and there's not a lot of prospects for the future. Now their leader over here is wondering, what can I do? We'll give the leader a little crown here. What can I do to help make life better for my people? This right here would be what stage 1 looks like for Rostow's model. Life is bad, it's icky, and people don't have very good job prospects. All right, so how do you move up? How do you become a more developed country? Well, what you do is, at least according to Rostow, is you want to find a resource. Let's say these plants, whatever they are, they grow some type of fruit, say limes or something green. And what Rostow would say is you got to identify that thing and you got to start to sell it to other places because other places have money that you can use to help make life better for these poor people here. So what you do is you kind of open up your border to let other companies come in. So we're going to say like here is USA Fruit Company. And they're going to come in and since they want to take the fruits, they're going to build stuff that you didn't have before. So maybe they'll build like a port so their ships can come in. They're going to build roads so they can transport the product to the boat. Maybe they'll even install some electricity. So when their workers get there, they are comfortable and can have computers and whatnot to work with. But by letting this fruit company in, now the less developed country has stuff they didn't have before. Also, the way it can work too is that company, hopefully, and really will probably give the government some type of money. Also, what this leader can also do too is that leader can also just get straight up like loans from maybe a rich country's bank. So they can get loans from the United States. Whatever the case is, now that you're on to stage 2, and this is kind of a little bit more what stage 2 looks like, you are going to have money floating around that you didn't have before. Now, the USA Fruit Company, you know what? Now they're paying these workers money that they can have so they don't have so many dead kids anymore, right? Now they have money so that their kids can have a slightly better life and actually live. Also, this leader, at least according to Rostow, what you really should do, what he should do or she should do, is use some of this money, don't just take it all for themselves, and build stuff that you didn't have before, right? Build a school, build maybe a hospital, you can read that, school. So now you won't have such uneducated people anymore, right? Now this person, while they might be uneducated, they can send their kid to school. That kid will know more than their parents did, right? They can be more educated because now there's actual schools in the place and people can live better because there's hospitals and just it's easier to get around too, right? This kiddo can take the road to the school. So by letting in companies from other places and by maybe even getting loans too from rich countries, you can end up with that good stuff that you didn't have before, right? Infrastructure, roads, education, healthcare, electricity, good stuff. All right, now we're going to move on to stage 3. This is kind of a better looking island than the one I had before. You still have farming going on, right? And I think it's important to remember that, like, whatever that natural resource is, it's leaving the country. So let the resource gets traded, and in exchange for that resource that's leaving our less developed country, money is coming in, right? Money is coming into the farmers, and you know, it could be farming or it could be some other type of primary type of activity where they are getting some type of natural resource. Now the farmer has more money, right? Also, that money is coming into the governments. Over here, we'll kind of draw our little king guy again. Give your queen, give them a little crown. But the money's coming into the government, then the government can spend that on good stuff too. At least, hopefully they should. Rostow really wants those governments to do that. Whether or not they do that, you know what, that's something we're going to explore in a little bit. All right, so the resource gets traded and money comes into the country, money that they didn't have before. All right, as this continues to happen, again, the government can use that money to add more electricity. These are supposed to be little thunderbolts here to show there's more electricity. We're going to electrify the school here. There's roads. We've got our hospital here. And you know what? Before we saw that the farmers' kids, they went to school. Now that that kid's going to be a little bit more educated, there's more jobs that that person can do. Also, now that there's actually like decent sized roads, decently educated people, this is going to be my kinda educated kid right there. Now that you have, you know, slightly more educated people. Most people are not graduated from college because, I mean, I don't see a college here, right? But you are able to start to do more complicated jobs. So then, perhaps the government could take out more loans and they can build this themselves, or they can let in, you know, another company. We could say a USA clothing or electronics company. They might want to set up a factory. There we go. Now, factory work isn't great work, but it's still better than a lot of the primary work that's out there, right? So this factory job, making cheap labor goods, right? They're making iPhones, they're making clothing, so they're exporting t-shirts, maybe iPhones. That's what they make in the factory, because this guy over here, he's willing to work for less money than you are. We've learned about these guys before. I'm going to guess most of you are not going to be willing to work in a big factory 12 hours a day for just a couple bucks for the whole day. But they're sending those things out, and you know what? T-shirts and iPhones, while those are still relatively cheap goods, they make more money than farming, right? So now that you have a factory, you are bringing in even more money to this kind of second generation of kiddos here, right? Now they're able to make more money, and there's just simply more money coming into the company from places like the United States, which wants those t-shirts and iPhones. So they're trading resources. In this case, they're kind of trading the cheap labor that they have. The kids are a little bit more educated, but you know what? They're not starving anymore. They can live. And before you know it, a lot of these people start to move to the areas where there are factory jobs. And now you start to get actual, like, cities, right? It starts to look a lot more developed. All right, moving on to stage 4. This one's a little bit more complicated, but kind of after a while of people getting better factory work and factory jobs, you actually start to have people, you know, have a little bit more money than they did before. I mean, these factory workers are having way more money than their parents did way back in the sad farming days, right? Where they were uneducated, kids were dying, they were hardly making any money at all. Most of that food that they were doing, they were trading for themselves. But now you have people who actually have some money of their own. Hopefully the government all this time, again, this is really important that the government continues to invest in things like roads and electricity, and who knows, maybe they'll even invest in a college, right? And before you know it, at least hopefully, you'll start to have even more educated people. And you know, this guy, he's seen people before him work in the factory. Maybe his grandpa and grandma, maybe they were those farm workers, and this guy, gal over here is like, you know what? I don't want to be a factory worker, and I see these factory workers are getting more and more money, so I'm actually going to start my own business, right? I'm going to start my own, I don't know, we'll say this person can start their own clothing store. They're not going to be making it, but they're going to be selling clothes now, right? Now this person has a tertiary job. They have a service job. They're not providing anything for the United States anymore for rich countries. They are now selling to the people who have a little bit more money, right? And now what you have is an even higher paying job where people are passing money around, right? And money is flowing throughout your less developed country. Yeah, you still do have the factory workers who are still sending off resources or cheap labor goods. They're still sending that stuff off to the United States. And that's still bringing in some money, right? But hopefully you have more educated people who have good jobs, good ideas to create those good jobs or to create those businesses. And now you have tertiary jobs, you have service jobs, right? And now we are a long, long, long way away from these poor people who had primary jobs who are just struggling just to feed themselves. Eventually they had a primary job to sell stuff to the United States. This guy over here is making lots of money for himself. And, you know, they will spend money to more wealth that's getting spread around. Now this guy maybe goes to a restaurant, and then that restaurant is going to hire more workers too, right? And just more and more money gets passed around. All right, on to stage 5. Stage 5 just kind of happens after a while. It's really not that easy to get to, as we'll kind of look at different case studies, but what will happen eventually one day with our imaginary country here is eventually so many people will have so much money that a lot of them will be doing more and more tertiary jobs, more service jobs, right? They'll be having their own business, fixing houses. They'll be working at the mall, working at restaurants, working at clothing stores. Perhaps there'll be like an actual business having to do with information, like an app development company. Really complicated stuff that's going to pay more and more and more. And eventually, this factory job, which looked so good way back when, won't look as good anymore. And these people will go and have the opportunity to go to college, get an education, or at least get a high school education, and go work in tertiary jobs, right? And there probably won't be as many factory jobs, but what does happen in stage 5 is this idea of you sending resources, sending your stuff to other countries, and that you're getting most of your money from other countries. That doesn't really happen anymore, right? Now you are making money yourself, and all that good money is getting passed around inside of your country. You're a consumer, you're a high consumer country, and you've made it. You're now like the United States, where, yeah, we do some farming, we send it out here or there. Yeah, we do a little bit of factory work, but for the most part, we're providing services for one another.